Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope half term was fine and you're all well and ready for the return to Gilead. As you know, this is a question on the first exam paper about the Handmaid's Tale. It gives you an extract and then asks you to write about the extract and the novel as a whole. So we need to know the novel really well in order to be able to do that. And this lesson is going to remind us of what we need to know about the Handmaid's Tale to be successful in the exam. Then we'll spend the next 3 lessons thinking about aspects of the novel in more depth. I'll talk you through the slides, asking you to pause and complete some tasks before you return to the presentation. So, 3 key things we need to know and think about for the Handmaid's Tale. First of all, genre. It's very difficult to pin down the genre of the novel. It crosses all sorts of boundaries, although the module that we're studying it in is a fantasy module, so we'll probably start with that. We'll also look at the methods such as setting, characterisation, point of view in much greater detail, and think about the structure that Atwood uses throughout the novel. And as for context, we'll be thinking about both generic conventions that the novel has, so it's all about fantasy. What elements of fantasy does Atwood use or disregard? But we'll also be thinking about what was happening in the 1980s when Atwood wrote the novel, and what's happening now. It's an interesting time to be reading this novel with the excess of state control. It's a novel all about fantasy. It's a novel all about how state removes all control from its citizens. And that is a bit of what we're going through currently in this pandemic. We have had a lot of our rights removed. So we'll be thinking about all of those things. So let's begin with what happens. This is the novel reduced to its absolute key elements. You've got this young woman who's caught trying to escape from a repressive regime. She's with her husband and her daughter when she's caught. She's separated from them. Forced to become a handmaid to produce children for sterile couples. Sent to the home of one commander. I think she's already been to 2 before this. And this is her last chance. She has an illicit relationship with the commander at his prompting. She also has an illicit relationship with the commander's chauffeur at his wife's prompting. She's taken to a nightclub called Jezebel's and sees her old friend Moira. She's taken away from the commander's house either by the eyes or by mating, I'm not sure which. However, interwoven with Offred's reflections on life in Gilead are memories of the past, a life before Gilead. The structure of the novel makes it a challenging read, with the reader knowing little about the world of Gilead and the world that preceded it. We get a very, very narrow view. We sort of think we know more about the world that preceded it because it seems to be the world that we live in. So we've got a timeline. I'd like you to spend 15 minutes creating your own timeline and annotating it. There's one here to help you, which you could use completely and utterly and just annotate it with pictures, colours, whatever you want. Or you could create your own. So pause now and come back in 15 minutes when you've done that. Welcome back. I'm hoping that you've got some real idea or real clarity about what happens in the novel now. So we have a homodiegetic narrative which allows us to examine Offred's life or the parts of it she reveals in great detail. In particular, her relationships with other characters. And we've got a relationship with her mother, not a particularly good one. Moira, her best friend from university. Her daughter, she's full of grief and loss about her daughter. Her husband, Luke, which is a challenging relationship because he was married to someone else when she met him. Her lover, Nick. And also a relationship with the commander's wife and all of the people, the Marthas in the house. But also her own body. And that's a really interesting one because she keeps going back to that. The narrative of voice allows Atwood to explore all of these things. But because we only have one perspective, this can be viewed as unreliable. Offred tells us the story she wants us to hear. This could result in a lack of stability, which is intensified by the way in which the novel is structured, jumping from one time frame to another. So we're never stable. Offred's not stable. And as a reader, we're not stable either. So you have some key terms you need to be comfortable with when studying The Handmaid's Tale and writing about it. And you should use these constantly. The story world. This is a world we recognise and yet strangely different from the world we inhabit. And we talked about it being a palimpsest. In fact, Atwood mentions that in the first page of the novel. And that just means that there are traces of our world underneath Gilead. And if you think about the opening of the novel where we've got a gymnasium and all the evidence of it being a gymnasium is still there, however it's now a dormitory for the handmaids. We also need to look. You also need to think about and have notes on characterisation. And Atwood groups characters according to their function in Gilead, and then within these she creates some vivid characters, standalone characters. The Commander, Offred, Moira, Serena, Joy, and Aunt Lydia, to name a few. And she makes you think about the effect of Gilead on each of these individuals. She's not entirely focused on Offred, but of course we're getting everything refracted through Offred's viewpoint, which takes you on to the next, the homodiegetic narrative, so we understand the character of Offred better than any other. And also genre. We'll be looking at this next lesson. Is the novel a fantasy, dystopian, speculative fiction, a neo-slave narrative, or a selection of all of these? And how do we know? So we'll check that out next lesson, and we'll work out which we think is the strongest genre, perhaps. Now I want you to pause and follow the link and read this essay, okay? And as you read, I want you to underline, make notes. You can't underline because you won't have it printed out, but highlight bits of the essay that you think are important. And I want you to highlight the 3 most important ideas in the article. It should take you at least 15 minutes to do this properly. So pause now. Welcome back. So, my 3 most important, what were the most important ideas you thought that were there? I've got 3 of them, and I'm going to share them with you. The first one is where it said things might be very scary right now, but can we remember World Wars I and II just for a minute? And in the 1950s, we all thought we were going to be blown up with nuclear bombs, so there are different kinds of scary. I thought this whole article resonates very well with what's going on today. The type of scary now is obviously COVID-19 and the pandemic that's happening, and the way that that's changed all of our lives. So the novel appears to be still relevant now in that it explores what happens when the world changes and we have no control over that. Second one, the central theme in Atwood's fiction is power, inequality or abuse of power against women or anyone else. I'm afraid it is all about power for a lot of people, she says. A lot of these things don't come out of a wish for power, they come out of fear. Not to be that one. Remember Julia in 1984? Do it, Julia, not me. Do it to Julia, not me. Social mobbing is on Twitter about being on the side of those doing it rather than on the side of those having it done to them. And surely that's very relevant today, in the current moment, because everybody has an opinion about what's happening. I'm just thinking about Dominic Cummings and the Twitter storm that has surrounded him. So, still relevant, absolutely relevant right now. You could also think about Donald Trump and his tweets, and the nature of power, who has power, who holds on to it, and how they hold on to it is very relevant. Finally, I thought, for Atwood, the defining factor of our life is being born in 1939. There's no question. Of all the reference that informed The Handmaid's Tale, slavery, the Salem witch trials, Soviet system, the list, as she says, is long. Nazi Germany is its rotten heart. The idea that stability can be overturned overnight, which is, once again, very, very relevant today. We had one world in March, towards the end of March. It was fine, everything was jogging along as normal, but I had mentioned that there was this new disease, the virus that seemed to be taking over in certain worlds, certain places in the world, but we didn't actually believe it was going to happen to us. And then suddenly schools were closed, we're on lockdown, and everything that we thought was right has been turned upside down. So the Handmaid's Tale seems to be really, really relevant for today. It seems particularly relevant at the moment. We've got Dominic Cummings, a Twitter storm. Did he do what he did because he felt he was more powerful than his critics? So who horsepower in the society, and who controls who? Or who? Yeah, you know what I mean. All three of these quotations show why the Handmaid's Tale is still relevant today as it was 30 years ago. Next lesson will be exploring the genre in lots more detail. I'll do another one of these links so that I can talk you through the lesson. But I hope you found that useful, and I hope you've got something from it. If you could send me any notes you've made, a picture of any notes you made, that would be brilliant. Thank you for listening, and see you soon.